Good morning, students. So this is the first lesson about genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology. Genetic engineering is the title given for biochemistry students, and recombinant DNA technology is the title given for molecular biology students. Since it is very important for all of you in your future career, so we made this paper as hardcore. So that means you don't have a choice that you can skip this particular paper. So before we get into the genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology, so it is my duty to inform you that how important this particular subject is and the reason why we have made this as a hardcore. Before we take up the subject per se, we will try to understand the scope of this particular paper. So now when it comes to the scope, the very first point is going to be the information. The information means that the amount of information available in this regard about genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology is huge. Suppose if you do take any life science journal, you will find all the publications includes one or the other recombinant DNA technology experiments. So in that case, it is better to understand the basics of this recombinant DNA technology so that you can try to understand what is this all about. So before we get into this information subject, let us discuss about what type of research is happening in Gangotri, in most of the life science department concerns about genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology. So the neighboring department is genetics and genomics. Their research includes SNP. SNP is single nucleotide polymorphism. So now the research group is strongly involved in DNA sequence analysis and try to identify single nucleotide polymorphism. So now as their subjects, they collaborate with speech and hearing, that is in central institutions. So in their speech and hearing, they do get a lot of patients who have difficulties in speech. So we have two different conditions, what is called as a dyslexia, another one is autism. So now they do the sequence analysis of such patients, try to understand why they have difficulties, what kind of mutation happens in that so that they are unable to speak properly. So this is the type of research what they do in genetics department. So now you have to extrapolate this SNP basically because this SNP, they are interested in the disease form where they have problem in speech, in dyslexia or autism. But you also have to understand the positive part of it. For example, if you look into our own students community, we do have a lot of good singers. I would call them, these singers are talented. Some of them are really genius. How come they can sing so well and I cannot sing that well? Now, if SNPs are responsible for speech problem, probably there must be a similar mutations in such genius people or talented people which we need to identify. So now, for example, if there is an dyslexia or autism, now the therapy is going to be that I think they have to teach in a different format. So they cannot use these sounds what we use regularly in the classrooms. They have to use a special type of sounds. They have to practice, they have to train them. So that slowly we can bring confidence in such people. So for example, I cannot sing. I don't have the relevant SNPs or the modification in my gene, but it can be trained. So we have a proverb, Harta Harta Raga Kunita Kunita Tala. I think that is very appropriate so that if you can train them, so we can compete with even the talented persons. So this is the type of research what they do in genetics. I can extrapolate the same thing in the studies which is happening in physical education and sports science. So in the physical education and sports science, I think you do have sports which requires endurance, which requires speed, which requires power, and also requires concentration. There are some sports. For example, we all know that Usain Bolt is the sprint champion. But do you think he can win marathon? Definitely not. Marathon requires a different set of muscles and different set of endurance, in fact. So when you try to identify what changes are there in Usain Bolt or what changes are there in a different sport, so now that gives an idea stating that during the genetic analysis of individual talented people, we can identify that. So these are all the changes happening in those sports persons. So because of that, they can excel in the sports, in fact. So now, for example, we cannot ask Usain Bolt to do the archery or a shooting because that requires a lot of concentration, isn't it? So now these are all the changes. I am associated with the physical education and sports science in analyzing some of the samples, and I'm surprised to see that a lot of SNPs are identified in a gene which is responsible for hypertension. So I do have a small research project on hypertension. We work on an enzyme called as an ACE, which is nothing but angiotensin converting enzyme. And the inhibitors of these angiotensin converting enzymes are the possible therapeutic drug to regulate hypertension. And surprisingly, there are some sports persons can have a long endurance. For example, a soccer player, so where he has to play for continuously for 3 hours without any change. That means he needs a lot of endurance. So now when we try to analyze this ACE, which is important for hypertension, is there a modification happening in ACE enzyme with these people? Because it is no way it elevates the hypertension. So now these are all the studies which is very important. So one in genetics department where they work with the speech and hearing for the dyslexia, autism. The same thing can be extrapolated to the genius students where they are going to have excellent voice for the singing. And the same thing can also be extrapolated in physical education, sports science, in which we can identify the genetic analysis and we can tell this particular child is good for sprint, this particular child is good for a marathon runner or a long distance runner. Now this particular has got his cool, calm, he will not get excited. Such people are really good for sports involving concentration like snooker, billiards, carom, archery, shooting. So now talent identifications can be done at a very, very, very early age. So now can you imagine that how much information is there in our own universities in terms of the research activities? Okay, now this is only with respect to the two departments. One is genetics, another is sports science. So on the other side of our department is the food science and nutrition. So what type of research activities is happening in food science and nutrition? I think you all know about that. We also have a genetically modified food. So now best example is going to be the BT brinjal. So now when it comes to the BT brinjal, the technology involved in creating a BT brinjal is something we are going to study in our department as well as in department like botany, zoology, biotechnology, in other department as well, in fact. But it is more relevant with respect to the food science nutrition, the BT brinjal. Another one is going to be the golden rice. So the golden rice is also genetically modified one. But you might be wondering, no, we have a recombinant DNA technology, it is easy to make a golden rice. Golden rice means it is, the rice is nothing but starch. And in that rice, they have incorporated vitamin E. Now, this has got a lot of chemical marvel, basically because rice, the major component is going to be a starch, which is hydrophilic in nature. It is easily soluble in water. Rather than this vitamin E or vitamin A, they are not easily soluble, they are lipid soluble. So, in order to have this vitamin A in a starch component, the chemistry doesn't easily permit, in fact. So, looking into all the chemistry aspects, I think they have created the golden rice. So now that contains starch as well as the lipid soluble vitamin in it, in fact. So in order to understand that, I think we have to study this genetic engineering and recombinant DNA technology. Next to the food science nutrition is going to be the psychology. How come the psychology people are involved in recombinant DNA technology? Is going to be this acceptance of all these food. Suppose if somebody will provide, so now this is a BT-brinzol, this because in this BT-brinzol we have incorporated a toxin which is toxic to an insect. Will you accept that? Because before introduction of BT-brinzol, I think there will be a lot of resistance. This is going to be causing a lot of problem. Then there are another scientific community say that suppose if there is a gene, a toxic gene in brinzol, it might get transfected into other plants as well. So this is going to create a lot of problems. So acceptance is going to be an issue. It's going to be a psychological problem. So before we want to introduce any such things, the acceptance, psychological acceptance is going to be very important. So now that department I think is going to play, but they don't directly involved in the science and technology part of it, but in the marketing division, psychology is going to be very crucial, in fact. So now in the zoology department, we have a very proud possessions of Drosophila Center. So this is a unique center exclusively present in University of Mysore. So they do have a lot of Drosophilas in which plenty of mutations have been identified and characterized. If there is a mutation in one of the genes, so that can be easily seen, observed through a phenotype. So they do have a huge collection of the Drosophila mutants. So I think we have written a letter to the chairperson of zoology in which we can collect some of the Drosophila mutants so that we are going to conduct some experiments for molecular biology students in this particular semester. So apart from Drosophila and the mutation studies which normally takes place in zoology, so they are also involved in all other research activities related to the higher organisms, in fact. The next one is going to be the botany. So now from the botany, we evolved a department called applied botany. Now that one is converted into a biotechnology department. So they are very strong in plant biotechnology, especially the diseases which causes, especially the agricultural crops, a major the infectious diseases due to these organisms. So there is a huge loss to the agricultural crop. So a good number of research activities is happening in controlling most of these the insects or the fungi which infect this agricultural crop. So those studies are going to be extensively done in botany as well as in biotechnology department. So now they have done extensive work on a coffee and in the pearl millet. So these are the strong areas of Department of Biotechnology. They do use a lot of molecular biology technique to understand all those activities. So in biotechnology, they are also very strong in cancer biology, and they will try to understand why cancer is causing, what are the reasons for that, what are the genetic changes which is going to happening, how oncogenes will express and everything. All these things is going to be studied in biotechnology department as well. So when it comes to the microbiology, I think they are very strong in resistant varieties. They also work on obligatory microorganisms. Especially in diabetes and also related to other infectious diseases, they are working on that in order to understand the genetic components. So this genetic engineering and recombinant technology is very important. Chemistry is very strong in drug discovery programs. Whatever the drug they discover, they wanted to study whether it is an antimicrobial or anti-cancer drug. So in order to see the upregulation or downregulation of any of these cancer pathways, I think this genetic engineering component is very important. Finally, we have the physics department. So there they also work on X-ray crystallography. So in order to study the X-ray crystallography, we have to provide the protein in good amount. So a classical way of isolating and characterization of protein is very difficult. So it will be easy to express that in a vector system so that we can provide a good amount of protein to physics department so that they can study the X-ray analysis, so that they are going to give us the structure of a protein in atomic detail. So now all these studies, what I discussed so far is within our department, within our university itself. In Mysore, apart from University of Mysore, we have 4 institutions funded by the central government. One is CFTRI, another one is DFRL, another one is Central Sericulture Institution. So we also have a speech and hearing. Apart from that, we also have Anthropology Survey of India. So can you imagine the type of biological research they carry out involving genetic engineering and recombinant DNA technology is going to be huge. So the activities which is happening within Mysore itself is so huge. Can you include other universities, other institutions in India and abroad? So that means you take any new publication in the literature, you will find an experiment related to genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology. So you do have the informations available in an exponential format. So the moment you come out of MSc degree, so you are a master, you should be able to understand what the literature says. So because of that, so this particular paper, genetic engineering, is very, very important. So that just explains about the voluminous information available in the system. So if you do have so much voluminous information, again now we have another department coming in, is going to be the computer science department. So what this computer science department is going to do, that they do have all these informations available in a server in the form of a database, isn't it? So just to give an example of a database is going to be our literature. So when it comes to the literature, you always look for Google, or will also look for the PubMed. So in which you have to find out that literature should be made available, but nobody can meddle with that literature. You cannot change the literature. You can only see the literature. You can only read the literature. You can download and use it for any other purposes. So in a similar way, if you do have the DNA sequences or the protein data bank, protein sequences or the crystallographic data, because now if you do accumulate huge amount of them, so now these computer science departments, so they will create a platform in the server, and then they are going to design an application so that we have to study. So now there is a new science called as what is known as a bioinformatics. Now the bioinformatics is taught in computer science department as well as in the CIST. We do have a CIST, another department in the University of Mysore. So now this genetic engineering is an interdisciplinary. So because of that, we are going to provide you the basic information, but the application can be done in all other fields, isn't it? So because of that, this particular subject is very, very important for discussion in fact. Alright, see, apart from the huge amount of information available, the next scope is going to be the hereditary diseases. For example, we all know about the diseases. We have acute disease, we have chronic disease, and we also have an infectious diseases, because for all of them we do find a cure. There's a treatment available. So what about hereditary diseases? So hereditary diseases, it can be carried from one generation to the another generations. All right. So now just to give an example, in most of the biochemistry textbook, we describe an hereditary disease called as a sickle cell anemia. So in case of a sickle cell anemia, there is a mutation is happening in the gene level. Because of the mutation, so we always get a product which is having less function. Am I right? So now that is an hereditary diseases. So one example is going to be the sickle cell anemia. So who are all the people suffering from this sickle cell anemia? So the general population don't experience this sickle cell anemia, because we do have a lot of tribal people. In Chamarnagar district near Biar Hills, so we have a tribe called Soligas. So now Soligas have this sickle cell anemia. So many reports have been come from that particular Soliga tribe in fact. So apart from this sickle cell anemia, we also have hereditary diseases like hemophilia. Another one is going to be the thalassemia. So now people from Mandya, Malvalli and Mattur, there is a good number of cases in which they do find hemophilic patients as well as thalassemia patients in fact. Suppose, I mean, if these patients go to Bangalore for high-tech hospitals. So if they do have some bleeding disorder, when they go for a specialized centers for investigation, immediately they will ask, are you from Mandya? Are you from Malwadi? Because they know that much cases are coming from that area. So in order to understand what is sickle cell anemia, what is beta thalassemia, since it can cause from one person to another person, there is no cure for that. The only cure for that, we have to alter the mutated gene with a regular gene. Now that particular technique offers another discipline, what is called as a gene therapy. We have muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis, all of them do come under these hereditary diseases in fact. Now apart from that, we do have a lot of industrial application. One of the best examples which everybody appreciates is the production of insulin. Alright, so because we do have diabetes, and it is known that by 2025 or 2030, India is going to be considered as the diabetic capital. In the diabetes, again, we have two kinds: type 1 diabetes, which is insulin dependent, and type 2 diabetes, which is insulin independent. Type 1 diabetes is insulin dependent. The only way in which we can treat the patient is by administering insulin. So insulin is a protein, and earlier the treatment is done by extracting insulin or isolating insulin from the animals. The closest animal in which the cross-reactivity is very less is from porcine, is nothing but pig. Another one is going to be the bovine. A mixture of porcine insulin and bovine insulin used to be the treatment, but the patients used to develop allergic reaction because the insulin from pig or bovine or the cow can cause allergic reactions. The best way is going to be the production of insulin from the human itself. So earlier from the cadaver, they used to isolate pancreas and then they used to make the human insulin, but that is going to be very expensive. So the moment we have the recombinant DNA technology, so now they have isolated the gene from the human, they have incorporated that gene into a microbial system, and they produced in huge amount in a fermenter. Now human insulin can be easily made in a fermenter and it can be given. So this has given lot of application in which most of the important proteins can be synthesized or can be expressed using this recombinant DNA technology. So apart from insulin, we have a lot more growth factors can be expressed from this system, and all of them has got very good commercial value. Now we can also use this one for the purpose of diagnosis. Now I can take the example of coronavirus itself, isn't it? Now in case of a coronavirus, the current diagnostic methodology is using the reverse transcribed PCR. Now you all know about what is an RT-PCR, and because this is a coronavirus is a retrovirus in which the genetic component happens to be the RNA. So you have to take the RNA, convert that into a DNA, and then you have to amplify that in the PCR. So now in case of a corona, it is a new virus, and immediately what they do before try to understand anything, they can completely sequence the RNA. I think now the RNA sequencing or the DNA, the sequencing technology is extensively improved. So now if there is a new virus, within a week we can completely sequence the nucleic acid. The sequence analysis can be easily done. So from that, using the bioinformatics, we can try to understand which one is a gene and it codes for what kind of a proteins. We can deduce the information. So now once we have the sequence analysis, so to get a protein for ELISA type of a diagnosis, so now we can take this particular gene and like how we expressed the insulin protein, so we can also express the antigenic protein of coronavirus, and then we can easily develop the diagnostic kit. So earlier, before this recombinant DNA technology, then we have to grow the coronavirus in a controlled conditions, then we have to isolate the protein, because now we don't have to handle the coronavirus. But if you do know the sequence informations, from that we can express the protein, we can use this protein for the diagnostic purposes in fact. Now because of the lot of techniques which are involved in this one, so the recombinant DNA technology also has got a tremendous application in the forensic science. I think you discussed about what is a fingerprinting, what is a footprinting, what is an RFLP, RAPD. These are all the techniques is based on the existing genetic informations. So now that is one important aspect. So in order to understand that, this particular genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology is going to be very, very useful. And finally, so this recombinant DNA technology also offshoots and another important scientific field is called as a gene therapy. So for all we do know the causes for hereditary disorder, but what is the treatment? So we cannot treat with any drug or any medication. So we have to manage the hereditary diseases. But if you want to cure the hereditary diseases, then we need this particular technology, gene therapy. It is still in the infant stage. We are not made any successful progress. So that, I mean, if there is, okay, now the person is suffering from sickle cell anemia, I can cure the sickle cell anemia by gene therapy. It is not happening. But they have made some progress in the hemophilic patients, but not a lot. Because still the hemophilic patients are thalassemia patients from Indian community. I think they don't have the facilities in which they can be taken for gene therapy treatment. It is not there. It is still in the infant stage, in fact. So when you look into the various application of the genetic engineering, I feel that I think it is very important that you study this paper as a hardcore. So now I have made it very clear that, I mean, how important is this genetic engineering and recombinant DNA technology. And next, I think we will just see the basic steps involved in genetic engineering. So now in the genetic engineering, I think these basic steps is going to be done using microorganism, especially the Escherichia E. coli. All right. So now we will just discuss some of the steps involved in the recombinant DNA technology steps in E. coli. Okay, when it comes to the recombinant DNA technology, we are going to make a hybrid DNA. What do you mean by a hybrid DNA? So now this is the DNA which is shown in the red, is the DNA of our choice, which we would like to incorporate it into a host organism or host genetic material. So that means we have to generate this particular DNA of our choice. So now the generation of this DNA of our choice, so itself is a challenging one. So we are going to study in detail, I mean, how we are going to generate the DNA of our choice, what methodology we are going to study, that we are going to study in detail. For the time being, we'll try to understand that, okay, we have a DNA of our choice. Now the next one is going to be a vector DNA. So what exactly is a vector DNA? Now this is a DNA component of a host organism. All right. So now what is the whole purpose of this idea is that now this is the DNA, that is the vector DNA is from a host organism. Now we are making a hybrid. That means we are cutting this host DNA, that is the vector DNA, and we are stitching this particular DNA of our choice into the vector DNA. Later we transform that into a host for multiplication. Or suppose if this particular one has got a specific function, we would like to see that that particular function, that new function is expressed in the host. That is the whole idea of that. So now, so this is the DNA of our choice, and I will just discuss a little bit about like what are the characteristic feature of a vector DNA. Now this the vector DNA what we are using currently is a plasmid DNA. You all know about what are plasmids. These plasmids are nothing but it is an extra chromosomal DNA and widely present in most of the microorganisms. And so now this is a vector what we have chosen is commonly present in Escherichia coli. Commonly we call this as an E. coli vector. So now in this E. coli vector, I have marked two important regions, DNA segments. One is ORI. Now this is the region which is responsible for replication, what is called as an origin of replication. We abbreviate this as a ORI. And we also used a marker. So now here the marker DNA is nothing but it is an antibiotic resistant gene. So here I have written it is an ampicillin resistant gene. Now this ampicillin resistant gene is very important, is to understand whether I do have a clone or not. Probably we will try to understand the use of this marker gene in the subsequent steps. So now the basic requirement is a DNA of our choice. Another one is going to be the vector DNA which suits a particular host. And this vector DNA has got an origin of replication. Another one is going to be the selection marker. And all the plasmids, or most of the plasmids, are circular in nature. So in a circular DNA, it is difficult to insert the DNA of our choice. So for that, what we have to do, that we have to cut this circular DNA into a linear DNA. Okay. So in order to do that, that particular process is called as a linearization of the vector DNA. So that means, so we have to cut in a specific site. Now this cutting of nucleic acid using at a specific site is again carried out by an enzyme. We generally call this as a restriction endonucleases. We will discuss that a little bit later. And now the cutting should be in unique position. So we cannot cut at different positions. If I cut in different positions, that results in fragmentation. Fragmentation is not the idea of us in this particular experiment. Only thing is we have to linearize. In order to linearize, we need to cut in one position at a specific site. All right. So now the requirement is a vector DNA and the DNA of our choice. The very first step is going to be the linearization of the vector DNA. So we have done this linearization. So now here is the origin of replication and here is the ampicillin resistant gene. Once we have linearized this particular DNA, now we take this DNA and we mix with this DNA of our choice. Then we try to do what is known as a stitching. We try to join together. Now that particular process is called as a ligation. And even the ligation is carried out by an enzyme. We call this as a ligase enzyme. So we take this linearized vector and we do take the linearized DNA of our choice. We mix them in the presence of an enzyme ligase. So now normally we incubate for 1 hour in the presence of ligase and everything. So now then what happens? The open end will come together and then they join together. So now during this one, I think we are going to have 3 combinations. One combination is that there is an open end here, there is an open end here. So now they close themselves. So it will create a circular DNA of our choice. Even the vector DNA has got an open end here and an open end here. They also close themselves so that it will recreate the original vector. That is also a possibility. Another possibility is going to be the clone. That is the main purpose of our experiment. So now what happens is that this end will join, this end will join. Okay. Now that is a hybrid DNA. So what we call this as a clone. So now with these 2 components put together in the presence of a ligation reaction which is carried out by the enzyme ligase, 3 possibilities are there. One, this by closing itself, and this by closing itself, and this is the one. So now we are not interested in this species, not in this species, but we are interested in the clone, this particular one. How do we identify this clone in a ligation mixture? Suppose because this is done in a test tube. So in the test tube, we have this, and we have this. But we have to identify only the clone formation. How are you going to identify this? So this is the next challenge. So what we do that after the ligation reaction, we are going to perform what is known as a transformation. What exactly is a transformation? So now here I told you that this is a vector which is normally present in a host, that is in E. coli, as an extra chromosomal DNA. So now we will take this E. coli. To this E. coli we are going to transform all these ligation product into E. coli. Now that particular process is called as a transformation process. So here is a linearization, then the ligation, then the next step is going to be the transformation. So that means the E. coli has to accept this extra chromosomal DNA. So now because of that, not generally the E. coli will not take any extra, especially the huge molecule like this. So we have to create a condition. So they are going to be competent enough to accept all these things. So what we call this as a formation of a competent cells. I think there is a procedure we can discuss in detail about like how we are going to convert or how we are going to prepare competent cells. So once you do have the competent cells, so now you take the competent cells and then you mix with this ligation product. So what happens is that during the transformation, only one particular species will make an entry into the E. coli. An E. coli cannot have all these three species. An E. coli can have only one particular species in that. Okay. So now that particular one is called as a transformation. I think we are going to discuss in detail about how this transformation is done. So now usually what happens, we take the competent cells, because in the competent cells the cell membrane is highly fragile. So we have to handle them gently, and all our experiment has to be done at 4 degrees centigrade. You cannot carry out the further experiments at room temperature because you are not going to get the product in fact. So usually you take the competent cells, you mix the ligation mixture, then you incubate on ice for about 1 hour or so to make sure that all these the ligated product will make an entry into the system in fact. So I will go to the next slide. Now this is about transformation. All right. So now in the previously I have discussed that I think we have taken the what do you call the ligation mixture, and we have also taken the competent cells, and then we did the transformation. Once we have done the transformation, then again I think we allow them E. coli to grow on a LB agar medium. So this is an LB agar medium. So now in case of an LB agar medium, so once we do the transformation experiment, there are 4 possibilities. So in the E. coli, so we can have a vector DNA incorporating into the system. Either we have the second one is going to be the clone, third one is going to be the foreign DNA by itself, another one is going to be the host cell. So just to make it very clear, I am using the part of the slide here. So now in this vector we only find in the E. coli this particular species inserted. This one is, this particular clone is inserted here. So when I do say foreign DNA, now this circularized DNA is going to be done. Then we also have E. coli which not have incorporated any of them. So now, so because of this, all of them can easily grow on a E. coli media. So that now we are going to get lot of colonies. Now in this colony, how do we know that a single colony from here, okay, now this colony has got the vector, this colony has got the clone, this colony has got the foreign DNA, or now this is a bacteria do not contain any of those things, isn't it? Now that is going to be very difficult. Now here it is going to be random. So now because of this, what happens is that I told you we are going to use a selection marker. Now that is going to be the ampicillin resistant gene in fact. So ampicillin resistant gene means usually, for example, if I do take the host cells. So now this is a regular host cell, it's a regular E. coli cells. Now these E. coli cells can be easily killed using an antibiotic. That is going to be the ampicillin. So what we do that, so while inoculation, so we prepare the LB agar media. It is not a regular LB agar media, but this LB agar media contained an antibiotic ampicillin in it. The moment we have the ampicillin in it, this host cell which do not have any of these vectors do not grow because it is going to be killed by the ampicillin. You got it? Now, because if you do it in a regular LB agar, all these clones is going to be identified. But now what we have done for identification, we have used a marker. So now that is the ampicillin. In the presence of ampicillin, only a vector DNA which has got an ampicillin resistant gene will survive, otherwise they don't survive. So the host cell which do not have any of these vectors, they do not survive. So now this number 4 is completely eliminated. What happened to the species which contain the foreign DNA? Now, because in this foreign DNA we don't have any ampicillin resistant gene. So as a result, any host cell which harbors this foreign DNA, since they lack ampicillin resistant gene, now this particular species is also eliminated. Out of 4, there is no chance that we have the host cells. There is no chance we have the cell with containing foreign DNA. Now, since this one and this particular form has got the ampicillin resistant gene, it is difficult to make out because any colony can be either contain a vector DNA or it contain a vector DNA along with a clone. So identification of this particular one is the next step. So, but because of the using of this ampicillin resistant gene, so in a transformation, the formation of these two species is completely eliminated. Now what is the next step we are going to do that one? So we take randomly, we isolate, we will pick the colony through a sterile toothpick. Again we inoculate that in a new LB agar, again containing ampicillin. We are going to inoculate in this region. So we call it number 1. We take another one randomly. We inoculate here and we know that the selection 1 is going to be number 2. Number 3. So like that randomly I think we have selected around like 14 colonies, and what we have done is that we have transferred into a new plate, but we have marked them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we know that which one is which. Whether in this one some of them might have just the vector DNA, or some of them for sure might have a clone DNA. So what we do that we will pick it from this colony, we inoculate on a fresh LB agar plate containing ampicillin, we label them, but we do the inoculation, and the same thing is also inoculated into a test tube containing an LB, not an agar, but LB medium without any agar. It is a liquid broth. All right, we allow them to grow because from we inoculate them and we inoculate them. So here we are going to culture a liquid. We are going to prepare a liquid culture of number 1. This is number 2, number 3. I'm not going to writing all the 14. So like that, I think we have made the LB agar culture and also the liquid culture of individual colonies. So we grow them for 24 hours or overnight in a shaking water bath. So then what happens from this particular batch, we isolate the plasmid DNA, what is called as a DNA isolation. That is a very well established procedure. Now the DNA isolation is normally, it is not done by either chromatography or anything, because we have a very well established extraction procedure. Using this extraction procedure, we are going to isolate the DNA. Once we isolate the DNA, now again I think we are going to treat this isolated DNA with a restriction enzyme. I will tell you one thing is that whatever the restriction enzyme we are using here to here, because now when it comes to the circular DNA, we linearize them using a restriction enzyme. We use the same restriction enzyme to digest the plasmid DNA. Now after the digestion, we are allow them to run on an agarose gel electrophoresis. So usually we make agarose gel electrophoresis. It contains 0.9% agarose in trisporase EDTA buffer. Okay, we isolate the plasmid DNA. Then we take this plasmid DNA and then it will be subject for the restriction enzyme digestion. And normally the enzyme which is used to linearize the vector DNA is used for the restriction enzyme digestion, and the digested products is allowed to run on agarose gel electrophoresis. Here the DNAs are going to be separated based on the size. Alright, so now here, suppose if a colony contains only the vector DNA, so if you try to digest that with restriction enzyme, we only get one fragment which is linearized. Whereas if there is a clone in that, then what happens, apart from linearizing that, we also releases this new inserted segment. So you are going to get more than one band. So this is the logic behind it, in fact. So as a result of that, what happens is that, so we can easily identify, like, okay, now from this random colony I have selected and I have labeled them, and after labeling them I have isolated the plasmid DNA and then treated with respect to restriction enzyme. Then for further identification I ran this on agarose gel electrophoresis. Now by observing the DNA fragments, now I can tell that 1, 3, 4 are just the vector DNA and they don't have any clone, whereas the number 2 and number 5, since they also got an additional DNA segments, that means they have a clone. Okay, now number 2 and number 5 are the clones, in fact. So now this will give us an idea. So these are all the basic steps involved in a recombinant DNA technology. And if any new students come to study molecular biology or biochemistry, the basic steps which the person has to do is going to be this particular experiment, in which they have to use a vector, they have to create a DNA of their choice, then they have to linearize them, they have to do the ligation, they have to do the transformation, and then they have to identify the clone. So all these steps are very important, and then from these basic steps, next I think we are going to study what are vectors, how many types of vectors, and why we have so many types of vectors. Now that is another huge chapter covering about 5-6 classes. Then how are we going to generate the DNA of our choice? There are so many methods, and which is the methods which is currently used by the life science students or the researchers, and what are those and how they are going to generate. So all those individual steps are going to be discussed detailed in my further lectures. So this is going to be my preliminary video which discuss about the importance of recombinant DNA technology, the subject, as well as the basic steps which are involved in understanding this recombinant DNA technology. Thank you very much.